I'm back. Radish is alive. We're ready to get filming again after 3 months. It's been a long time. I'm actually really nervous right now. I was shaking earlier this morning, just thinking about filming and how to take myself for a walk just to calm down. This is actually probably going to be my first unscripted, unplanned video because I knew that if I gave myself the task of having to plan it, I would put it off. Yeah, let's just catch up about where we've been. This can be like long overdue FaceTime with a friend. I just wanted to give you guys some context about what I've been going through and what I've been doing since September when I last posted. I am ready to start posting to my channel again. I don't know if it's going to be regular schedule or not. Still haven't figured out exactly what I'm doing, but I didn't want to start posting again without having some sort of bridge to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that I have not been here. I guess to give a little background, for those of you who have been following me for this last year, you probably know that 2024 was a wreck. I wouldn't say it was the worst year of my life. I think there was definitely a lot of good that came out of it, a lot of growth. It was a very necessary year, but it was hard. I'm not gonna lie. I think there was a lot of change happening. It felt like I could not catch a break. And even thinking back to, earlier in January, I was in Japan. That feels like a million years ago. I can't believe that was even 2024. Let me rewind a little bit because this needs more context. So the year before, in 2023, basically ever since I moved back to New York, things have been just going at such a fast clip. And I moved back to the city, was trying to get acquainted with everything again, new routine. Then I started training for my fight, which was a really big part of my life for 2 months. After that, I started trying to launch this Notion course. And then after that, I had this other product I was going to launch and wedding stuff, and just constantly I was in crunch mode, like the type of feeling you have when you're in finals and you just have to get through that week to get through the other side. That was me for an entire year. And so when I did go to Asia and I had that trip, it was fun and everything, but I felt like I was still in this lag and still had so much backlog to catch up on, and there was just so much I was behind on. So part of me was enjoying it, but also part of me was not present like I should have been. And then I came back to New York, and I think around that time was when, we realized that the job market was really bad, finances were going to be hard, and decided that it just made sense to move back home, so we wouldn't have to be worrying about that all the time. Moving across country is not an easy thing. This was definitely the hardest move I've ever had in my life, and I've moved over 20 times. Not kidding. Not just emotionally, but the physical, logistical part of having to move home to a place that already has stuff and, split time between places and, yada, yada, all of that. That was a very stressful time getting everything over here. And I tried to be patient with myself, to give myself time to readjust and know that, change is hard and it was going to take a while. But I noticed that my anxiety, which I've always had, was getting worse. When I get anxious, my ADHD and OCD also get worse. Fun things going on up here. And I got to the point where I no longer could really feel joy about anything. It's like I had lost the ability to just live in the moment, I guess you could say. Everything was scheduled, everything was planned. I didn't really know how to function without some sort of sense of control over what was going to be happening over every minute of my day. The stress from the last year or 2 years just built up to a point where I started having panic attacks multiple days in a row. My OCD was flaring up really badly. I felt like I had to perfect and control, and just it was like a very difficult time, and I don't think I saw how hard it was for me until I was on the other side of it. Still not fully on the other side, but I'm getting there. And there was one day in the middle of September where I just stopped completely. I had been rescheduling my calendar for the 15th time, and I realized that there was going to be no way out of the situation I'd put myself in and the cycle I was in until I decided to just completely quit and start over. And you can call it burnout, you could call it the beginning of a mental breakdown that I did not have because I was able to give myself time. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just knew intuitively that I needed a break, and it wasn't going to be something that could be solved with just a few days of rest or even a week's vacation, because I had tried all of that before. I tried giving myself time. What was happening was something that I was only going to fix by changing a very deep part of myself that was broken, I guess. Sounds kind of corny to say, but knowing how I was, I knew that I would have to give myself at least till the end of the year, because that would be enough time where I could actually relax. I could actually let go of all these things that I told myself I had to do and just completely restart from nothing. And so I emailed everyone that I was working with, sponsors, canceled all my plans. I cleared off my calendar as much as I possibly could. And I gave myself 3 rules. Number 1 was no more digital organization. So that meant no Notion. I could only use paper planning because it's imperfect and it's messy and it does not trigger my obsessive compulsive tendencies. And number 2, I cannot use social media. So I was going to delete TikTok and Instagram. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to TikTok. I don't think short form is in my value system anymore, but I might go back to Instagram soon, still thinking about it. And then my 3rd and final rule I had for myself was that I had to do Artist Way. If you've heard of that, it's a book by Julia Cameron. I think I have it. I have my copy here. It's basically a book for kind of rediscovering your inner artist. I forgot I had read it so long ago and just was inspired to pick it up again and started doing all the exercises without even knowing why I needed it. The 2 things I really wanted myself to do from this book was morning pages, which is 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing every single day when you wake up. And then artist dates, which is something you do once a week for a couple hours that's just for yourself. So for me, that's usually wandering around a bookstore or going to a coffee shop, looking at, trinket shops, something that doesn't really have any purpose to it and you don't do other than just for the sake of doing it, which is a skill I needed to relearn. I also restarted therapy and I realized that there was a lot of issues surrounding control and perfectionism and validation and self-worth via productivity and what I produced that I needed to figure out. And the other thing that was a big breakthrough for me was that I finally got over my fear of taking anxiety medication. I just was too scared to take it. I was familiar with ADHD medication. I was comfortable with that, but taking something else was completely outside of my comfort zone and I didn't want to mess up what I already had. But I knew something had to change. It helped. It actually did really get rid of a lot of that background anxiety that I've had. That's not to say I don't get stressed or worried anymore, but just the constant rumination and living for catastrophizing the future, like all of that has been much quieter, which is a good thing for obvious reasons. But that also kind of opened up this whole new can of worms where I then had to discover, who am I without my anxiety? Because I realized that anxiety has largely driven me for most of my 30 years of living. And I didn't realize it because I thought it was me this whole time, who thought that she had to constantly be doing things and proving herself, making sure that she could justify her existence because just being and existing wasn't enough. So that's something I'm still working through. I think that's a pretty big existential question that, I've always been trying to figure out, but has obviously grown much more important in these last few months since I've had time to think about it. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense right now. I'm kind of just rambling a little bit, but where was I? Back to the timeline. So after, doing therapy, trying medication, giving myself, a couple weeks to really just rest, sleep in, watch TV, play games, doodle and put stickers all over my journal, just literally anything I wanted to, which I have not lived that way in a very, 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 very long time. The stress I had been holding in my body and my mind for years that had been accumulating was finally starting to dissipate, and I could see clearly just how burnt out I was and how jaded I was from the way I had been treating myself, from my value systems, from what I'd been doing. And then once that honeymoon phase started to wear off, because, doing whatever you want is fun for a little bit when you haven't been, but after a while it gets a little bit old, I started to try and get back into a productive work mode. This was maybe back in October when I thought I'd had, maybe a month to do this and that was enough. But I found a lot of resistance in trying to come back to YouTube and trying to really engage with the world at all. I don't think I was depressed. It's gonna sound like so corny and woo, and I'm not a woo person at all. Bear with me here. I really do think that humans need something to believe in, and That's why a lot of us are drawn to religion. I've never been religious ever in my entire life. And I think the reason why I never needed religion was because, productivity and grind culture and working and all of those things were my God. Those were the things I worshipped and the things that I thought were going to bring me meaning in my life and were going to create the legacy and the moral goodness that I needed to feel like I had a purpose. And once I let go of that, I think I ended up in, I say all the time I'm in an existential crisis, but like this was actually the mother of all existential crises. Because without all of those things to value and believe in, I had nothing anymore. And it almost felt like this horrible feeling of nihilism, I guess, for a little bit. And then I started reading Meditations for Mortals. If you guys know me at all, Oliver Burkeman is one of my favorite authors. He's very anti-productivity. 4,000 Weeks, which preceded this, completely changed my life. And I dare to say this was even better than that. But this book essentially is 28 days of a couple pages a day where he's basically going over different, probably like more Buddhist philosophical ideas, but in very understandable layman's terms. And I'd always been interested in Buddhism since I was younger. I took a class on it in college, tried meditating, but it never really clicked with me. I think probably because of where my mind was at. And as I was reading this, a lot of things started to fall in place for me. And I don't want to make this overly weird or spiritual or anything, but I did start to sort of connect more with those ideas. I got back into meditating. I started doing a lot of mindfulness practices, reading some other, similar books. I think I started to realize that the discomfort I was feeling after the whole first few weeks of this break went was something that I needed to go through. I'm still going through it to a degree for sure, but I knew that I needed a little more time to force myself to sit with that feeling of not being productive and not being a contributing member of society, which I hate talking about this because I know it sounds so cringy and privileged, and I just, but also this, I don't know if it does. Maybe it's just the voice in my head that's telling me I'm cringy and privileged and lazy for taking time for myself. I really want to get to a place where I can live my life and make choices based on my desire to do things, a want to do things, and not because I feel like I have to do them in order to be validated as a person. And I knew if I jumped into YouTube again too quickly, then I would only be doing myself a disservice because it would be a distraction from those feelings and a way to make myself feel better when I had not yet found a way to be content with myself. It's kind of similar to going through recovery for an addiction where something fulfilled you for so long that you knew it was bad, and when you decide to quit cold turkey, it's horrible and you go through withdrawals, and the only thing you want at that time is to just go back to that feeling you got from whatever it was that you were attached to. But the only way to really get through it is to keep white knuckling and have the faith that if you keep doing that, you're going to get to a place on the other side where things are better than you can see they will be now. At least that's my hope. And I'm still figuring all this stuff out for sure. I don't have answers yet, but I do feel like I'm finally at a place where I don't need to be living like some monk in my house and not seeing people or doing anything or interacting with the world. I think a lot of the answers that I'm going to find are going to come from trying and experimenting and failing. So I'm back for now. Still just as lost and confused as ever, but maybe a little bit more patient and compassionate and kind, and thinking more about the kind of impact I want to make on the world and how I can be a positive influence on this platform and in my work. So moving forward, I don't have a 5-year plan for you. I can't tell you what my brand or my niche is going to be. I think I will probably continue to just flail around and do whatever interests me online. And if that makes me less money or brings me less views and followers, then so be it. Because I did not start this path because I wanted those types of things. I started because I wanted to figure out who I was. I wanted to share that with people. I wanted to inspire other people to figure out who they are. And I hope that by me being willing to sit down and talk like this and really put myself out there, that it will inspire you to do the same. I don't know. Oh, God. Okay. I'm done. I have a couple videos in the works. There was one that I filmed but didn't put together. It was a review for my DJI Pocket, which is somewhere over here, so I might edit that. I'm going to be talking about Capacities, which is a fun app that I'm very excited to share with you guys. I don't know if I'm going to get into Notion again. I'm still figuring that part out, so TBD. Again, I'm not planning on putting myself on a schedule yet, maybe ever, in terms of publishing, so it'll probably be once every week to 4 weeks, somewhere in that range for now, roughly. And then I'm also gonna try and publish more on my Substack, which I'll leave the link below for that as well. I've definitely been re-inspired to write a lot recently. And other than that, we don't really have any plans. Just gonna be still trying to figure out this weird thing we call life. And I'm gonna shut up now because I've been talking for way too long. So it's good to be back, and thank you guys for being on this journey with me and for always supporting me and being so kind and positive. And I hope you're doing well, you're taking care of yourself, and if you need a little break, just know that it's okay. Bye.